Well, folks, we're back. We're on the trade show floor of Central Minex 2023. I'm going to tell you something. I absolutely love trade shows. And one of the reasons I do is I never know who we're going to talk to. I have a gentleman sitting with me right now. His name is Sleigh, and he's with Sprott Money. We've had a great chat prior to hitting record. I honestly can't wait to see where this conversation is going to go. Andrew, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Andrew Sleigh. I've been working at Sprott Money for a year and a half, and I would be their current senior consultant there. And this has been a fantastic event here. The hospitality of this, brand new event, inaugural event, has been well organized. And I didn't know what I was going to get coming in because I'm from away. Yep. So I flew in from Halifax, and here at a hockey rink, it's well organized, and I can't wait to continue on with our conversation. So.
Well, Andrew, I'm quite experienced in doing trade shows at Halifax in the convention center and a few other places, and I can tell you, like, that show in Halifax is bigger than this one, but this one is incredibly well attended. It's actually quite loud, to be honest with you. That's why I'm kind of speaking a little loud.
Yeah.
But so you're part of Sprott Money. I don't know how we're going to introduce this conversation, but I've been, on Monday I turned 57 years of age. I've worked extremely hard to save money. I didn't have a pension. So I've worked really hard to put a nest egg together. That, quite frankly, I'm quite proud of. That being said, I'm nervous about that. Would that be a good way to start this conversation?
Yeah, it's probably an excellent start. As we were mentioning earlier, one of the reasons I ended up at Sprott Money was, I spent 32 years in the financial sector and 22 years as my self-employed financial planner. So I was working my own shift, my own job, my home office, do what I want when I want. And there was never another correction in the market. More bad news after 08, 2016, it still never went back down again. So more bad news kept going up, more bad news. So there's an extensive amount of manipulation in the markets, way more than I ever thought there was. And as I got into looking into this, I realized that there's a problem with the dollar. There's a problem with debt. And then I started studying the history of currency and money, and I didn't like what I saw. And so it took me about 6 months, and then I realized, my goodness, we are in a final stages of the fiat dollar system. Fiat dollar is referring to the currency that's no longer backed by gold. And if you go back and study history on that, that means that every fiat dollar has always eventually returned to a value of zero. It's a historical fact, it's not my opinion. So that deeply concerned me because I have clients that are in mutual funds and all these other financial instruments that pay out in Canadian dollars, or you're going to cash it out into Canadian dollars. If the Canadian dollar has a problem, what's it worth? I would be selling a mutual fund to somebody that has a potential future value of nothing. So from there forward, I haven't sold mutual funds to any clients. I depopulated my book of business.
And you had been doing that for 23 years, 21 years?
22 years as self-employed, So I built up my business over, 20 odd years. Thought everything was good. I'm self-employed. I'll do this until I retire. Business is good. And now all of a sudden, I'm realizing that I may not have a job, and I'm self-employed. How's that possible? So I've then poured myself into the next 5 years, educating myself on the history of currency and money, because there's two definitions and two areas of that, and there are two different items, and nobody generally understands that. And looking at finding really good alternative viewpoints that aren't connected to like money managers of large multinationals. They're reined in what they can say.
Yeah.
They can't tell you, and they may not even know the truth out there. But if the truth is every dollar eventually returns to zero, or devalues at a very great rapid rate, which happens to all of them, like Venezuela today. You know, they've gone through all kinds of currency crises. Well, they were the fourth wealthiest nation in the world 20 years ago.
Yeah.
We were ninth.
Yeah.
So to pretend that we can't have a problem in this country is nothing more than denial. Denial is not proof of anything, right?
So what do you see? Governments policies are certainly missing the mark then?
They're insane. You know, our own Minister of Finance doesn't even acknowledge, or she's denying that the government printing money, borrowing money, which also borrows money into existence, has nothing to do with inflation. That, by definition, is actually what it is. Christina Freeland gave us the definition of what inflation is, which is the exponential expansion of the monetary supply, which actually the symptom of that is actually rising prices of things around us. We have it backwards. We use inflation as the general term for everything when it goes up, but inflation is actually the expansion of the monetary supply, and the symptom of that is, you know, groceries cost more money, cars cost more money, housing goes up. It's going up because the purchasing power of our dollar is going down. And it's a concept that isn't taught, nobody understands. The financial industry doesn't understand it. The mutual fund managers don't understand it. It's mind-blowing to me.
You mentioned something before we started recording about the number of people that invest in precious metals, and I believe you said it was anywhere around 1 to 2%.
It's 0.5%.
0.5%.
0.5% in North America.
Expand on that.
I don't know if I can. It's only 0.5%.
It's crazy.
So,
but I don't get it. Like, I certainly have always looked, I would look at years ago, you know, CDs when they were being made, and I would look at the precious metals that were going in there, and I would invest in the companies that were making them. So I'm a very rudimentary investor, Andrew, you know, but, tell us a little bit about what you think should be done.
Well, I followed this for 7 years, as you know, and as I've said, and I followed a fair amount of really good analysts over the years that were risk assessment bankers by trade that are now owning their own business, do what they want, say what they want. There's no strings attached. Other financial writers that say their own stories, and you know their risk assessments 7 years ago was, you know, it's always been 5 to 10% of your assets should always be in precious metals, regardless. They didn't even teach that in financial planning school.
Still seems small though, 5 to 10%.
Yeah, it's nothing now,
no.
Right? And then over the years, as the risks are starting to mount, they went from 5 or 10 to 20, to 25, to 30, to 40, to 50, to 60. Now some of these same people, they're saying, like one guy is over in Switzerland, and he deals with 7 or 8 figure clients minimum. So whatever that is, you know, a billion or multitudes of millions.
Yeah.
So his conversation, because of what he sees for risk, now starts at 75% of your assets should be in physical. And that's where it starts with his, and these clients are moving large amounts of money into physical because they don't want to lose it.
Right.
And that's what's going on around the world right now, is that you have high net worth individuals, countries, central banks, and bullion banks that are buying gold at 70-year highs to buy bullion, gold, silver, before their dollars no longer buy it. They're dumping their currency before their currency doesn't buy it any longer. And that's what's gone on in history over and over and over again. And this is what's going on right now. And so you don't listen to what they say, you watch what they're doing, because that's the tell. You want to emulate what these people are doing, forget what they're telling you to do. And then I guess where did I go off track? So with that 0.5%, and the other guy that I was following for a long time, you know, he scaled it up, and then last fall he mentioned that, you know, whatever you don't want to lose, you should be holding in physical. And I don't disagree with that. I fully agree with that. Now that doesn't mean you have to be 100%, because part of that money that you have might be in infrastructure, in your property, greenhouse, things that help you with this inflationary environment we're going to go into. Food is going to go through the roof. So do you put some money into getting greenhouse and the ability to grow food, or stockpile food, or whatever, right? Like, it doesn't have to be all in and just metal. It could be buying extra power generators, or things that will give you more self-reliance, because this system is going to get bad, right?
So it's quite a picture you're painting.
I know, sorry.
It's no, that's fine. I mean, it's important. It's an important discussion. So you divested yourself of everything you had done for 21 years, 22 years, and you did what?
I didn't sell the traditional investments any longer. I started depopulating my book, telling my clients that they needed to get into physical before they can't.
So by depopulating, you didn't sell mutuals, leaving cash. You took the cash and moved it into precious metals.
Yeah, gold, silver. Yeah.
Okay.
So if a client of mine had $500,000, Jerry, this is what I see going on. This is what you need to do, and we need to do it quickly. Okay. It's your choice whether you agree or not.
Yeah.
And if you don't, well, Jerry, you know my position. I've told you all the information I can. I can give you all the facts. I can back it all up. If you don't see it, then you're going to just stay put.
Yeah.
And call me when you see it. But I was wind up, Jerry, you need to cash out. I had clients that were all, yes, I see it. Some I don't. Some I have no idea what you're talking about. Some of them cashed out everything and moved their entire book.
Is that hard to do?
No, it's a phone call to your broker to ruin his day. Sign some papers, sell it off the account.
Yeah.
3-4 days later, the check ends up in your bank account, and then when it's there, it's a phone call and say, "I got my cash. Buy some metal," and that's it. But this is going to be very hard to do. Like, this is what's going on in the States right now. Is that there are bank runs going on in the States like crazy. They're not talking about it. When Silicon Valley Bank went down, that was a Friday.
Yeah.
Everything was good until then.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, 2 weeks prior to that, all the cronies and billionaires in the bank were all getting the nudge, and they got their money out. You and I are the ones that are the victims.
Right.
Before the weekend was out, it's 19 banks are in trouble. By the end of the first week, it's 179 are in trouble. And the last number I saw was a week or two ago, 455 are in trouble. This is not going away. It's going to continue to expand and consolidate every bank in the States until they get down to the 9 banks. TD Bank in the States is the most shorted bank in the world. 4 notches below that is CIBC. And Scotiabank made the top 10 list recently. And those banks are going to go down in the States. And when they do, all of a sudden the Canadians are going to say, hey, wait a minute, this is a Canadian bank that just fell. Up until now, they haven't cared. Okay? Oh, that's Silicon Valley Bank. That's not us. Our banks are different. It's nonsense. Utter nonsense. When Toronto Dominion goes, just by association, most people say, well, that can't be good. There's got to be something that might happen up here. Maybe I should just take my money out of that bank and go over to RBC or somebody else. And the banks are already on an edge of how much money's been flowing out of them. They can't handle much more withdrawals.
Yeah.
We're on a knife edge of when the banks are going to go under in our country. Historically speaking, you go back in the last 100 years, any country, and you see the leadership come on the news or in the newspaper and say everything is fine with our banks, our banking system is good. Months later, they're closed. Historically, that's every single time.
Well, it's funny. I did a transaction yesterday that you wouldn't believe how hard it was for me to move. It was $5,400. I couldn't do it because of e-transfer didn't work. I had to physically. I just found the whole process so antiquated. This is even more worrisome what you're talking about here.
It's going to continue to develop that way, Jerry, until the bank is not going to allow you to move money out of the bank.
Right.
And you got to remember your relationship legally with the bank. You deposit money at the bank, it's not your money any longer.
Really?
Okay?
That's interesting.
All right?
I did not know that.
Your legal relationship with the bank is you are now an unsecured creditor.
Of your own money.
It's not your money anymore, Jerry. All right?
Yeah.
You took your money. Once I give my money to you, if you're the TD Bank, it's now in your possession. It's now your money, and it's now a loan. And it's now an IOU back to me. You are now an unsecured creditor to the TD Bank or whoever bank. Okay? There is no other relationship. You have no, if the bank decides they can't pay you back, you're an unsecured creditor. You're going to be visiting the sheriff.
Yeah.
You know, or whatever that route would be, right? So they don't hang on to your money and wait for you to come back and get it. You know, that $10,000 you just put in, they immediately loan out. They pay you nothing in interest. Now they're loaning out to 10 grand and make money on it. And the fractional reserve banking in our country is horrible. You know, the highest rated bank, pardon me, the bank that has the highest ratio of deposits covered, and these numbers are a few years old, was BMO at 9.5%, RBC at 6.5%, Scotia and CIBC below 5%, and TD at 0.7%, and the credit unions were all below that. Okay?
Wow.
I get stories sent in to me from my clients all across Canada and the US. It's an excellent information gathering position, right? I had a client in Texas that said the documentation in the Prosperity Bank talks about, you know, you can't buy guns, ammo, whatever with your debit or bill payment or whatever. You can't buy bullion, silver or gold bullion. Isn't that interesting? The government's letting the banks do the dirty work to restrict. Why on earth can we not buy bullion?
Good question.
Excellent question, right?
Well, so
It's just right up there with guns and
shed
ammo.
light on it for us.
Well, that's a deep rabbit hole. But
is it?
But basically, governments hate gold. They don't want us to have it because it's a barometer of their shenanigans with the financial system.
Yeah.
You know, they want us impoverished so that they can introduce their universal basic income and their digital dollar. That's all coming, right? It's already been released in the States, quietly in stages. Okay, it was launched the second week of April. I didn't hear that anywhere in the news, did you?
No.
Okay. No. But it's officially been launched, and it's like government agency to government agency. You know, federal office to federal office. They're rolling it out in stages. The IMF has already declared that the Fed now will be launched for July. That's international monetary transactions. It's all there, but mainstream doesn't talk about it because everything is fine.
It's not lost on me that you're here and we're sitting on one of the larger gold deposits in the world right now.
Yeah, amazing.
And that's, so let me talk about that. You're in central Newfoundland at a mining trade show. And what is it you're hoping to get out of being at this show, given that it is a mining trade show? Is it your love of precious metals? Your message is very interesting.
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, you know, Eric Sprott is speaking here, so we're here supporting him because this is the company he started.
He started the company you're with.
He started Sprott Money.
Is he still part of it, or?
I think he's like an executive board person. You know,
Gotcha.
he's not in the day-to-day. His daughter Larissa runs the company.
Right.
And so, you know, that's first and foremost while we're here. And of course, there's such a close tie because it's the precious metals area, right? And what do we sell? Precious metals. So we're the end product of all these guys' labor. So it makes a lot of sense for us to be here just in support anyway. And Eric has been a big contributor to supporting mining and exploration and all that stuff. And then, you know, I'm at the company because when I saw what was coming, and with my background and experience, my mission is to spread the word to as many Canadians as I can to get physical gold and silver before they can't. Because once the herd is scared and moves in this direction in mass, you can't buy it after that. You know, it'll be it. You know, it's like a bank run. When you hear there's a bank run in Gander tomorrow, okay, you can't run out to get the money because everyone else is doing the same thing, and they don't have enough cash. So when everyone starts realizing that they need to go buy metal before they can't, it's already too late. So it's really important that people need to move in this direction in a timely manner to get their positions done to protect themselves before, you know, they can't.
So when you did your research all those years ago, 8 years ago, you said?
Well, yeah, it started 7 years ago up to current time.
So was some of Eric's methodologies things that you found as well?
I didn't know much about, I didn't even know Eric Sprott existed until literally I started to have a relationship with Sprott Money as a wholesaler buying metal.
Right.
And then I started to learn a little bit about the company, but I didn't even know who Eric Sprott was because in my industry, I didn't do anything with precious metals funds.
Yeah.
And you know, it's anti-gold, anti-silver. And I didn't have access to any mining products. So I didn't know anything about any of that stuff, right? So any of his speeches or talks, never found them in my scope of research.
Interesting. So we'll get to meet Eric tomorrow. He's been an advocate of precious metals for a long time. His entire career, I believe, and that made his career by being in precious metals.
Yeah. And you know, for a guy that I have no idea, you know, how well he is off, but obviously has done very well. He's wealthy, and what is he doing? You know, he's got assets that he's developing, putting money into mining and all this stuff. But you know, he started a precious metals company to sell bullion. Why would somebody do that unless that was a place to be?
Right.
You know? And most people I've ever found that were very astute, successful financial people that understood, like there's a few companies in the States that these guys were successful business owners. They were turned on to gold and silver. They did their own little research, realized, oh my gosh, this is where it's all going to end up. They sold their companies. They opened up a bullion shop, like an online, you know, similar to us, a bullion shop. They went out and they set off and did videos around the world for the next few years at their own dime to create historical evidence on currency and money. Spent a ton of money to give it away for nothing to educate their fellow Americans as to what the history of currency and money is, so that if you can get educated as to what's happening in the future, it gives you a really good understanding of what's going on now and into the future. You can position yourself accordingly.
Wow.
It was mind-blowing to me, let me tell you, and it's still mind-blowing to me.
Well, as I said to you before we were recording, you know, I used to drive my wife nuts. I'd have someone in the financial services industry in our house every week because they would be after trying to sign me up, but I learned a lot, and I still am in awe of the industry. And look, we've been talking now about 25 minutes. I think we need to talk more in the future. I think you're fascinating. It's such an interesting conversation that's important. And here we are, as I said, you know, sitting on a very large gold deposit, and in a place in the middle of Newfoundland, and it is busy.
It blew me away when I saw a little bit of details on how many miners were here, you know, whatever, 20 years ago versus how many now. It's like, where does all this come from? Right?
Yeah.
It's amazing how much this has exploded. We definitely need to have, you know, more discussions about this. But and I forget if you had a question there for me.
No, I didn't actually. I was just kind of saying to cluing it up, but yeah.
Yes, with the financial planners thing. Like the issue, unfortunately, with the whole financial system is that they don't want to discuss there's a problem with the dollar.
Yeah.
If they even start to believe that the dollar is going to go to zero or some form of that, then their whole system is shattered, right? You're selling a product that's in dollars, and if the dollar is going to go to zero, then what are you selling?
So, this is going to be a deep question, but in terms of not everybody can buy gold because there's just not enough to buy. There's not enough silver for everyone to buy.
At current valuations, that's correct.
Right.
So if you ramp up the value of the ounce, then there's enough for everyone to buy. At today's pricing, which is ridiculous, like $40 for an ounce of silver, it's ridiculous. It should be a couple hundred at least, right? But they've suppressed it down. But if silver was, and I'm not making a prediction, but if silver was like, say, $500, then all of us can only buy less. So therefore, there's more ounces for more people.
Right.
So as these valuations go up, eventually there will be, enough for people to buy, but not at today's values.
Yeah.
$1 million. If somebody wanted $1 million in silver, that sucks a lot of inventory out of anybody, and there's not that much inventory out there.
Interesting.
It's getting, silver, particularly coinage, is the first thing that sells out in Canada. Well, with anybody really, but so the very first thing you should be looking at purchasing is get your position of silver coins, particularly the silver maples. That would be your number one choice. And then you buy some of those, then you can move on to other product. But coinage is utterly important because that's what's flexible in using it to purchase stuff. You can't take an ounce of gold and go to the farmer and buy groceries for a month because it's $2,800.
Yeah.
They can't make change. But you can go take a couple of ounces of silver and go buy your groceries. And in Venezuela, from $600 in their currency 5 years ago to today, it's $617 million for the same ounce of silver. That's how much their currency went down. And it's still, and that's what it costs to feed yourself for a month in Venezuela. $617 million, or 1 ounce of silver. The silver maintained your purchasing power for the last 5 years and never changed. What changed is their dollar went into the toilet.
Interesting.
And that's the concept that just is so foreign to everybody.
Andrew, we're going to have to clue it up, but I can tell you this. I think there's going to be a lot of people want to connect with you. How would someone find Andrew Sleigh? It's Sprott Money.
Yeah,
what's the website?
So it's sprottmoney.com. So that's SPROTT money.com. I have a specific email address that is deathofthedollar@sprottmoney.com.
That should be an easy one to remember.
And
Death of the dollar.
Death of the dollar. I coined that one myself. The phone number on the website is the 1-888 number. My extension is 230, but all of us are fairly up to speed on this stuff. But if you want to speak to me or email me, that's how to get a hold of me. And I hope that you and I can do some further sessions, even if it's by Zoom. Well, I do that a lot now. So
I would love to do that. Believe me, this is a topic that I've been incredibly interested in, and I think, unfortunately, too many people aren't interested in it. They think it's going to take care of itself on the side.
Well, according to our leader, the books will balance themselves. Right?
That isn't going to happen, as you know. I tell you, I started off this podcast here today saying, one thing about a show like this, you never know who you're going to sit with. I come away from these conversations with many, with a lot of information. I'm coming away from your session with a lot more questions. That means we have to talk again. So I look forward to having a chat.
Awesome.
Andrew, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.